today we're going to continue to talk about um, what we covered in the previous video, which was so basically what I've done. Like you notice, I made the everything bigger, so now you can hopefully see everything more clearly. Okay, so what we did, we started off with the survey. So normally when we use the Likert scale, here I've used the 5-point Likert scale. So these are my values, right? Normally what happens is the respondents will give you an answer, right? So you want to input that answer. You can input the answer as the ordinal value itself, but it'll take a long time because you have to type in all those words. So normally when, for example, here I've used Google Forms. From Google Forms, when you export, then the Google Forms that understands the numerical value because you give the multiple answer, right? You give the multiple choice answer to your respondents, and then when on the Google form multiple choice questions, when they give an answer, so Google Form understands that as a numerical value. So when you export the Excel file, it will look something like this, right? And then there are always so many ways to approach it. Obviously, you can systematically convert all of these into their ordinal value, their categorical value. So basically here, one means strongly disagree, right? And then one means very positive. Two means positive, three means neutral, right? So one means what? One means very positive, two means positive, three means neutral. See here, for example, this image that I used, it was quite positive because you cannot see. Oh, there's one negative here. Interesting. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, but there's no very negative. There's just a few people saw it as a bit negative, right? Anyways, so what I was saying was there are so many ways to approach it. You can systematically convert all of these back to their categorical value, and then you can process them further. So there are always, when it comes to research, and when it comes to especially this kind of work with data, there's always multiple ways. Especially you're using tools. Each tool has its own function, its own application. So there's so many ways to use Excel to do your data work. But what I've covered last week was basically to use the pivot command here. Here you have something called a pivot command. To use this pivot command in order to, because when you look at these numbers, it's hard to make sense of them. You cannot add them in your mind and make sense of them. So we need some kind of summary, some kind of better representation. So I covered how we use the pivot. Here is the pivot command. And when we use the pivot command, what are the errors and what are the troubles that we face? Because here you see it's wrong actually, right? So that's what we covered in the previous video. If you haven't watched that, please go watch that first. You need to watch that in order to understand this video. So that's what we covered. We covered the troubles and the errors that we face because the Google Forms gives you these numerical values, and then you want to use pivot to summarize them, but then you run into some trouble. So how to overcome those troubles, and then we did that here. So what we basically did was to first use a function here. You see, this should be a function. Why is it not a function? Should be a function anyways. I'm not sure why it's not. To use a function, but the function is very simple. It just says take these numerical values based on what numerical value it has, just convert that to a nominal data. This is nominal or categorical, right? So make that into a nominal value. When you do that, before you want to pivot, you do this first. After you do this, now you can use the pivot command, and then obviously you can now get your summary. So today I want to talk about what this actually means and a bit about the conceptual aspect, because you see, you're dealing with data but at the end of the day you always have to come back to your common sense and what you're doing and what you want to say, which are words. At the end of the day, actions and words. So you need to make sense of these kind of summaries, what they actually mean, and then when you're doing like good research, so at good research can be done at any level, but especially when it comes to the PhD level, then you need to be able to stay very focused and with a very good understanding of what it is you're actually doing, because if you stray too far from the concepts and the meaning of what you're doing, then you run into troubles. Like you see here, we had a trouble. Okay, very small can be very big trouble, and then here similar things can happen. So that's what I want to cover. So before I do that, I want to insert there it is, a text box, so I can talk. It's like a slide. Okay. So what we do here is, what I want to talk about is the conceptual aspect of the ordinal, let's put it in the quotation mark, ordinal data, or dual, ordinal data that you're dealing with here. So conceptual aspect of the ordinal data and its processing. So let's see, what did we actually do? Let's not forget what we actually did. What did we actually do? What we actually did was give a questionnaire. Okay, on a 5-point Likert scale. So let's remember, let's recap what we did. So we had a questionnaire. We had a questionnaire. So we had a questionnaire, right? Which basically is does the rating, right? We had a questionnaire which asks respondents to, right? Did I spell correctly? Yeah, which asks the respondents to do what? Asking us to rate on a what? 5-point. I realize that I'm pronouncing this incorrectly. It's not Likert, right? Previous video say Likert. It's not Likert. It's Likert. Sorry, Likert scale. So we had a questionnaire which asks respondents to rate. I hope this is not too small for you guys, so let me increase the size. We had a questionnaire which asks respondents to rate what X, okay, on a 5-point Likert, again I say Likert scale. Okay, so what was that? All right, I'll write here. So we're doing things correctly. Very positive was one, right or no? Okay, very positive, neutral, negative, very negative. Okay, so we had, these were our values. What are these? These are ordinal values. these are what ordinal values. So we started with ordinal, but we shouldn't forget this in terms of when it comes to your research, PhD research, or you're doing some very good research. So these are your values. Conceptually, because you have to always take this back to your framework, take this back to, you know, your conceptual framework, your theoretical framework, conceptual framework. Always have to take it back there. So what are these values? These are ordinal values. But as we can see here, even when they look like this, even when they, let's say you systematically converted all these numerical values, and then basically what you see here, imagine you have it like this, right? Even if you have it like this, it's still hard to make sense of it. You cannot count them in your mind. You cannot just add these in your mind. We human beings, we don't have this ability yet, maybe in the future. But still, we cannot just look at this and you know, add them all up at the same time, like simultaneously in our mind. So we need some kind of better representation. So that is why we did this, the pivoting. And the pivoting gave us the percentages. The percentages is very useful because we can, when anybody looks at 9%, okay, 9% negative, they can quickly understand, okay, this X is what, 9, 15, 35, so not much negative. And then you have here 37% positive and 37% very positive. So you look at this, immediately you get the idea this X is quite positive. Right, from this. But if you look at this, you can't, unless you have some very advanced abilities. You can't do that. Maybe you're a prodigy. You look at this and boom, you get this from this. It can't happen, but it's maybe 1 in a million, right? For the rest of us, you know, for the rest of us normal people, we have to have something like this. So when you have something like this, you can make sense of it. Now you got numerical values. So after it's a kind of like you're adding up and then you're summarizing. So it's kind of after the summarizing of the ordinal values into percentages, now we have numerical values. But the error that happened here, you remember? See? So we should always remember that this representation is wrong because these are not the answers the respondents gave you, they're not numerical values. That is in fact why this error occurred, and that is why we had to first make them into nominal values and then process them further. But when you get these percentages, it's easy to forget you know, that these numerical values, which are percentages, actually come from ordinal values. So what do these ordinal values mean? So although these are numerical values and they are correct, if you say 37% answered very positive, that is absolutely flawless. That is flawless. There's zero issue with saying 37% responded very positive. There's no issue with that. But what are these values? Are these values numerical? No. So what you need to remember is the ordinal values numerical, and therefore do not necessarily have let's say like this, because we don't want to say they because there are researchers who make the assumption that the space between a Likert scale is equal, so the equidistant space between the points on the Likert scale. But what I want to say here is that the space between them is not doesn't have quantitative value. It has qualitative value. So that's what I want to say. So the space, say size, between, because they are different. When you say ordinal, they are different. Neutral is different from positive. But how much different? Between the points on the Likert scale are do not have a quantitative value. They have qualitative value intrinsically. So intrinsically, they have a qualitative value. So if I tell you the difference between neutral and positive, how much is the difference, is a wrong question, isn't it? Is a wrong question, because you cannot say how much different, because it's not something quantifiable. It's not quantifiable. If I say, what is the difference between positive and very positive? You can say there is a difference. Very positive is higher than positive. But how much? So if I ask you, how much difference is positive from very positive? This is a wrong question. Wrong question. You cannot ask this. But if I ask, is there a difference between positive and very positive? Absolutely, that's the right question. That is a correct question. But this is what I want to show you. So although here there are numerical values, and you might think, oh, I have 37.5, so I know exactly how much answered very positive. Yes, you know exactly how many answered very positive. That is not the same as claiming that because 37% answered very positive and then 15% answered neutral, so you know the space between very positive and neutral. No, you don't know the space between very positive and neutral. You can say there is a difference. So when it looks at this, they can say x is quite positive. So you can say absolutely, because this summary shows that. But how much, you cannot answer the question. How much? Because how much is a quantitative question. But is there is not a quantitative question. Is a true or false question. Is there? Yes, there is. But if I say how much, I can say so always remember to not lose track of the conceptual aspects of the quantitative things that you are doing. Because data can be nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. These are the 4 types of data. And your work can possibly be very quantitative, very far on the quantitative side. So you have like precise measurements and all these things, which is fine. Then maybe this would be less relevant. But then you might be doing interdisciplinary work, or you might be doing, you might be dealing with things like such as this kind of ordinal data on a survey. Then you need to be very, very careful. You need to be very, very careful. You need to know your theories. You need to go back to they are processing the data, what is common, what is the trend, and what are the opinion of the other researcher, peer review, right? What are the opinion of other researchers? So here, that is what we covered. Hopefully in the next video, I want to talk a bit more about when it comes to writing about this. So now you did the data work, and you are avoiding those pitfalls, conceptual pitfalls. Now you want to build your argument. Thank you so much for listening, and wish you guys all the best in your work, career, research, and thank you.